My name is Eliana Rowe, 32 years old. The email landed at 9:12 a.m. with the subject line that makes your pulse miscount. Division Head, R&D Milbrook. I read it twice, then a third time to make sure the zeros weren't multiplying in front of me. 450K base. Up to 150 in bonuses. Equity with teeth. A full relocation package that looked like it had been written by someone who believed in parachutes. The catch, the one I knew would turn a conversation into a trial, was the word Milbrook. Population 30,000. 3 hours from any city our friends would consider real. I screenshotted the offer and slid my laptop shut, the way you close a secret so it doesn't escape before you're ready. That night, I found Jason on the couch, legs tucked under him, scrolling portfolios of sunlit kitchens and sofas that cost more than my car used to. He was 29, sharp with color and scale, a promising interior designer who could turn a hallway into a thesis about light. When he looked up, his face opened. "Hey, you're late." "I was offered a promotion," I said, and the word hung there like a fresh key on a ring. "Division head. I'd lead the engineering group. There's equity." I could have said life-changing. I could have said ours. He smiled, automatic, happy for half a second. "When do you start?" he asked, reaching for his glass. "We should celebrate." "In Milbrook." I sat. "They're opening the facility there." The smile paused mid-breath. "Where?" "3 hours north. Small town. But the lab's state-of-the-art, and—" "You're joking," he said, a laugh that wasn't laughter. "Elle, I'm not moving to a boring small town for your job." "It's not boring," I said, already reaching for the folder on my phone. Photos of the Riverwalk, the brick downtown, the farmer's market that looked like a painting where the colors still remembered their names. "Look." He didn't. "My career is here," he said, voice cooling. "My clients, my vendors, my network." "Designers work everywhere," I said quietly. "Cost of living there is 60% lower. Houses that cost $2 million here are $400 there. In a town of 30,000? He sprinkled sugar in his coffee like arranging blame. "What am I supposed to do? Curate barns?" "That's not fair." "What's not fair is even considering dragging me to the middle of nowhere," he said, standing. "Our friends are here. Culture is here. Food is here. Security is here," I said. "Financial security." "Money isn't everything," he said, the words like a script he'd been rehearsing. "Quality of life matters. Quality of life includes not panicking at the rent increase." He turned, jaw tight. "If you loved me, you wouldn't even consider this." My answer is no. Absolutely not. I'm not moving to some boring town for your job, or any job. I looked at the man I had once planned to marry and felt the room rearrange itself without moving. He hadn't asked what the salary was. He hadn't asked what the role meant. He hadn't asked who I'd get to be. "I understand," I said. "Good. Now can we please drop it?" I did not drop it. I researched until my eyes blurred. Milbrook wasn't a boarded-up could-have-been. It was a town catching its breath and choosing to run. There was a performing arts center, a robust hospital, a tech corridor springing up like grass after rain. My company's lab was the anchor. Other names were already signing leases. I built spreadsheets until columns became comfort. Tax rates, insurance premiums, mortgage calculators that didn't laugh at me. Photos of houses with porches big enough to hold conversations. Every time I tried to share any of it, Jason made a short chopping motion with his hand. "We already decided." Or he would smile a careful smile and say, "Please stop trying to convince me to ruin my life." His friends did not help. At dinner the following Saturday, Natalie, his ex-girlfriend who'd remained in orbit the way certain comets do, arced an eyebrow over her glass. "Eliana in a small town," she said, as if describing a museum installation. "You'd die of boredom in a week. Right, Jace?" He stared at his napkin. Jessica, a stylist who loved a microphone, jumped in. "It's giving patriarchal vibes to expect a partner to uproot for a job," she said, eyes on me like a lens. "Honestly, kind of toxic." "I'm sitting right here," I said, keeping my voice level, "and there's nothing patriarchal about the woman taking the job of a lifetime." "In this day and age," Jessica said, dazzling the table with a shrug, "expecting someone to follow someone else is archaic. Expecting someone to turn down a career jump without even a conversation is what?" I asked. "Progressive?" Jason kissed my temple like you kiss a child who's being silly in public. "We're not doing this." That night, I made my decision. The next morning, I called my boss. "I'm in," I said, and heard my own voice come back to me with a steadiness I wanted to pocket for later. "Outstanding," he said. "6 weeks to transition. Relocation team will reach out today. We'll announce the facility lead after you land." I opened a new bank account for the relocation bonus and the incoming salary. Separate, clean lines. I started a list titled, "What Stays, What Goes," and another titled, "How to Tell Him That Stayed Mostly Blank." I compared moving bids, scrolled through rentals with kitchens that invited you to warm your hands on them, booked an extended stay for the first 2 weeks. I began living 2 lives in one body, the woman who bought salmon for Thursday and the woman who measured pods and door frames. 3 weeks later, Jason noticed the distance I wasn't trying to hide. "What's wrong with you lately?" he asked over dinner, as if the question were a napkin he could fold into a crane. "Just work stuff," I said. "Well, stop moping," he replied, eyes already sliding to his phone. "It's annoying." It was a small sentence. It was also a map. 2 Sundays before my move date, I couldn't stand the duplicity of pretending Thursdays were just Thursdays. I made coffee, sat across from him at the table we'd argued at and kissed at and paid bills over, and said, "We need to talk." "If this is about that small town thing again?" "I accepted the job," I said. "I'm moving to Milbrook in 2 weeks." He stared, then laughed, a sound with no air in it. Very funny. "I'm serious. I've got a house lined up to rent until I buy. Movers come next Monday." The color slid from his face. "You can't be serious. We're together. You made it clear your life here is more important than any future somewhere else." "That's not what I said. You said you wouldn't move for my job or any job. You wouldn't even talk about it." I kept my voice soft because someone had to. "This isn't just some job, Jace. It's running an entire division. It's the thing I've been working towards since I wrote my first program in a dorm room, while you were teaching me the difference between alabaster and ivory." "I don't care if they made you CEO," he snapped. "I'm not moving." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm going alone." He stood so fast his chair scuffed the floor. "You're choosing a job over me." "You chose your lifestyle over us," I said, and the room went very still. "I'm just accepting your choice." "If you leave, we're over," he said, and there was triumph under the threat, as if he believed he'd finally found the line that would make me fold. "I know," I said. He waited for me to beg. I didn't. The next 2 weeks were a weather pattern. First anger, my clothes in the hallway, his story to mutual friends reframed as my abandonment. Then bargaining. "What if you commute? 3 hours isn't that bad. Weekends?" Then a slurry of tears and late-night lamentations, how I was ruining his life, how no one would ever love him again. And when none of it worked, fury again, hotter this time, laced with Natalie's exact phrasing about small-town minds. On moving day, he stayed at Natalie's. He'd already blocked me on everything but email, which we needed to disentangle the lease. The movers loaded up the life we'd packed together, room by room. I handed over the keys and looked back once at a window with good light where I had imagined we'd map a future. Then I got in the car and drove. Somewhere past mile marker 118, the city let go of my rear view, and the sky stopped pretending to be small. I rolled down the window and let cold air slap every remaining doubt out of me. My phone vibrated nonstop in the cup holder. Names I knew, numbers I didn't, a message preview from Jason's mom. I let them stack. Milbrook rose out of trees and water like a place that had been practicing being itself for a long time. The rental was a 3-bedroom craftsman with a porch that told stories at dusk. The lab smelled like clean metal and possibility. My team was brilliant and hungry. There were bakeries with names painted by hand, a Thursday market that made me think in recipes, a concert on the green where a kid danced like gravity was a rumor. I looked around and realized the only thing missing was the permission to own this joy. It arrived with the first morning light, soft and undeniable. I made coffee the way I like it, black and honest, and stood at the window. Some people only ask for details when a dollar sign is involved. Some people ask because your eyes are shining. I had finally learned who was who. The first Monday after arriving in Milbrook, I woke to silence so thick it felt physical. No traffic hum, no upstairs neighbors arguing about rent, just the soft click of the thermostat and birds stitching the morning together outside. I stood in my kitchen, still half unpacked, watching sunlight crawl across the counter, and I realized, for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for someone to give me permission to feel at peace. The first week was a blur of meetings and names. My new team, 50 engineers, hungry and brilliant, greeted me like I was both a leader and a test they hoped to pass. The lab was sleek, glass walls and brushed steel, but the work had heart. We were building something real, something that could change the entire company's direction. And I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. The following weekend, I unpacked the last box. Every mug, every book, every photo now had a place. That evening, I sat on my porch steps with a beer, watching the sunset leak orange through the pines. It hit me then, what I'd traded. The noise for the quiet. The city's arrogance for this strange, honest air. Then my phone buzzed. Natalie. Hey, just checking in. Heard you actually moved. How's small-town life treating you? I stared at the message. There was no kindness in it, just curiosity, like she was taking notes for gossip later. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, another text, this time from Jason's mother, Margaret. Eliana, sweetheart, I hope you're settling in. Jason's been quiet, and I'm worried. He says you left suddenly. Are you okay? That one I answered. I'm okay, Margaret. I moved for a position that means a lot to me. I think Jason just needs time. I left out the rest, that he'd already taken that time and filled it with resentment. The next 6 months were a study in contrast. Every day in Milbrook filled itself easily. Morning runs by the river, office laughter, small talk at the bakery, where the barista learned my order by week 2. The boring town Jason had mocked turned out to be vibrant in ways that didn't need to scream for attention. We launched our first major project that summer. The company threw a modest launch party. Streamers, catered finger food, a few champagne bottles that popped like punctuation marks. I stood on the stage, looking at my team, and said the words I'd always wanted to say. We did this. We built something from nothing. My boss pulled me aside afterward, grinning. You've outperformed every forecast. Expect a nice surprise in your next check. He wasn't exaggerating. My first quarterly bonus hit $40,000. My total compensation was on track for $600,000 by year's end. It should have felt triumphant, and it did, until I posted one photo. It was innocent enough, me with my team, arms around each other at the lab, captioned, "Proud to lead this incredible division as we launch Project Phoenix." By morning, my LinkedIn was a fireworks show. Congratulatory messages from industry peers, recruiters, people from grad school I hadn't heard from in years. Buried among them was a name that stopped my breath. Jason. No message, just a seen notification. Proof he'd read the post. 3 hours later, the text began. Jason, division head? Why didn't you tell me it was that big of a promotion? I didn't answer. Then came the next one. Jason, this is crazy. Your company website says that salary range is that real? Still no reply. The messages kept coming, climbing from surprise to desperation. I made a mistake. I thought it was just some middle management role. I didn't know. I miss you. Then Natalie again. Hey, Elle. Just so you know, Jason's been having a hard time. He regrets how things went down. Maybe you could talk? Also, we didn't realize your job was that massive. You should have told us. The irony nearly made me laugh. They didn't want the truth. They wanted the numbers. I ignored them. Until 2 days later, Margaret called again. Eliana, honey. Jason told us everything, she said gently. He said it was a lateral move, that it wasn't serious. We had no idea it was such a huge promotion. Why didn't you tell him? I closed my eyes. Because he didn't want to know. She sighed. He's been miserable. Maybe talk to him? Margaret, I tried for months, I said softly. I sent him pictures of the town, spreadsheets, everything. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to be right. Silence hummed on the line. Then she whispered, You deserve to be proud of yourself, sweetheart. The call ended, and I sat for a long time staring out the window at the soft glow of the porch light. Success wasn't the same without someone to tell, but that was the trade. Peace over partnership. 2 weeks later, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, the last person I expected stood there. Jason. He looked different, nervous, smaller somehow, like the city had shrunk him. Gone were the designer shirts and tailored confidence. He was wearing jeans, a wrinkled flannel, and a smile that didn't know if it should exist. Eliana, he said, voice careful. Hey, what are you doing here? I just wanted to talk. How did you find my address? He hesitated. Your neighbor mentioned where you lived. I asked at the cafe. I blinked, more angry than surprised. You tracked me down through strangers? I had to, he said quickly. You wouldn't answer my messages. Because I have nothing to say to you. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. Elle, I made a mistake. I thought you were just chasing money. I didn't understand. You didn't want to understand, I said. That's not fair. It's perfectly fair, I said, crossing my arms. You called me selfish for wanting to grow. You let your friends call me toxic. You said my dreams were beneath you. And now you're here because you found out how much they pay me. His face crumpled. It's not about the money. Then why now? I asked. Why not 6 months ago, when I left? Or 3 months ago, when I moved into my house? Why only after you realized what you gave up? He didn't have an answer. Elle, please, he said finally. I see it now. The house, the community, your success. We could have an amazing life here. I have an amazing life here, I said quietly. You're just not part of it. He looked like he wanted to argue but couldn't find the words. His hand twitched as if to reach for me. I stepped back. Go home, Jason. He lingered another moment, then nodded. If you change your mind. I won't. When the door closed behind him, I exhaled so hard my ribs hurt. For the first time since leaving, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clean. Milbrook might have been small, but it was big enough for the life I'd built and the woman I'd become. The morning after Jason's uninvited visit, I found a note slipped under my door. It was short, his handwriting, precise but shaking. I was wrong. I thought you were running away. Turns out you were running toward something. I just didn't have the courage to follow. I read it once, then slid it into the drawer with old utility bills and manuals. There was a time that letter would have shattered me. Now it barely rippled the surface. Still, the ripple grew louder online. By midweek, Natalie had started posting vague messages on social media. Some people pretend success means integrity, one caption read, over a photo of her wine glass. Another, funny how people rewrite history once money's involved. Mutual friends sent screenshots with comments like, she's definitely talking about you. I didn't respond. The louder they got, the quieter I became. But the silence didn't last long. An email arrived from a law firm. It looked official, but the wording was ridiculous. Our client, Mr. Jason Mitchell, has experienced financial and emotional damages due to a relationship dissolution under false pretenses. They claimed I'd intentionally concealed the true value of my promotion, preventing him from making an informed decision about his future. I laughed out loud. It was so absurd I had to reread it twice. My attorney, Melissa, didn't laugh, but she smiled, in that razor-edged way lawyers do when they know they've already won. We'll handle it, she said. He's reaching for anything that feels like control. Her response letter was art. Ms. Rowe made repeated attempts to discuss her opportunity, all of which were categorically dismissed by Mr. Mitchell. He explicitly stated that any relocation would result in the termination of their relationship. Her subsequent success does not constitute deceit or damages. It took her 4 paragraphs to say what I'd spent months choking on. He didn't want to know, and now he hates that he didn't ask. The lawyer's letter worked. The case evaporated. But the gossip didn't. Natalie's new narrative spread fast. I had tricked Jason into ending things, used him for stability, and ran off to chase money. She even hinted at financial manipulation in a podcast interview. I only knew because a coworker sent me the link, captioned, "She sounds jealous." The backlash, though, came from a direction I hadn't expected. Under the podcast's clip, one of Jason's former clients commented, "Didn't he tell her flat out he wouldn't move? I was at the dinner when he mocked her job. Own your choices, dude." Then Jessica, the loud one from that dinner party, jumped in. "Girl, you shut her down every time she tried to talk about it. Stop pretending you were blindsided." And finally, Margaret, his mother, added one simple comment under their thread. "Eliana tried to build a future. My son refused to listen. I raised him better than that." By sunset, Natalie's post was deleted. Still, the damage was done in a different way. Seeing his mother publicly take my side felt both vindicating and cruel. I hadn't wanted to win against him. I'd wanted to win with him. But that version of our story no longer existed. 2 weeks later, Jason showed up again. This time, I saw him coming, walking up the path in the same jacket he used to wear on our city nights out, the one that had always smelled faintly of cedar and pride. He stood at the edge of the porch. "Can I come in?" "No," I said. He exhaled through his nose like he'd practiced this conversation with a mirror. "I didn't send that letter," he said. "My lawyer suggested it. I wanted to talk." "Talk or justify?" I asked. He looked down. "Both, maybe." I crossed my arms, waiting. "I thought leaving would ruin us," he said finally. "But I see now. I ruined us before you even packed a box. I couldn't stand the idea of you being more successful than me. That's the truth." That was the first honest thing I'd heard him say in a year. Jason, I said quietly, you didn't ruin us by being insecure. You ruined us by pretending that insecurity was my fault. His eyes glistened. I didn't mean to hurt you. I know, I said, but meaning doesn't undo damage. He shifted, shoulders slumping. I saw your interview last week. You mean the one on our company's website? He nodded. You looked happy. I am. He swallowed hard. Is there any chance? No, I said, gently but firm. Not because I'm angry, because that chapter's over. He nodded, blinking fast. You're different now. I'm the same, I said. You just never looked close enough to see it. He stood there a moment longer, then turned away. For once, I didn't watch him go. That night, I sat on the porch again, the same spot where I'd first realized peace could be a choice. Fireflies stitched light across the lawn. My phone vibrated once, a message from Melissa saying the legal nonsense was officially closed, followed by one from Margaret. Proud of you, sweetheart. You did the right thing. Sometimes the hardest choice is the one that saves you. I typed back, thank you, then stared at the stars until the screen dimmed. In the distance, a church bell struck midnight, and I thought about all the ways people try to rewrite history when truth doesn't serve them. Jason had lost the relationship, but he hadn't lost control of the story, at least not until now. And me? I'd finally learned that silence isn't surrender. It's strategy. A year passed like a long exhale. Milbrook, the boring town I'd supposedly ruined my life for, had become home in ways the city never managed. My division was thriving. We'd just launched a new product line that sent shockwaves through the tech world. I'd been asked to speak at a leadership summit in Chicago, something I used to dream about when I was coding on a secondhand laptop in my apartment kitchen. When my first full-year compensation statement came in, $625,000, including bonuses, I sat there staring at the number, smiling not because of the money, but because of what it meant. Independence, clarity, proof that I hadn't been crazy to want more. That weekend, I drove out to the lake 20 minutes outside town where I'd just bought a second property, a small cabin tucked among pines. My I made it place. The air smelled like cedar and peace. And as if the universe had a sense of humor, that's where I met Evan. He was at the cabin next door, trying to fix a busted canoe rack. He was tall, tan, and laughing at himself as he lost the same fight twice. He introduced himself as a veterinarian, local clinic, rescue work, quiet life. We started with coffee, then hikes, then dinners that stretched late because silence with him didn't feel like silence at all. Evan didn't ask about my salary or my title. He asked if I liked the stars out here better than the city lights. When I told him about Jason and the chaos that followed, he just said, "You chose yourself. That's never the wrong choice." By autumn, we were inseparable. He grounded me in a way success couldn't. Then, one Thursday afternoon, my assistant buzzed into my office. "There's a delivery for you, from the city." It was a letter, handwritten, no return address. "Eliana, I see the photos of you and your new boyfriend. He seems kind. I hope he is. I wanted you to know I finally understand what I lost. Not the money, though I'd be lying if I said it didn't sting, but the partnership I could have had if I'd only listened. You were right. I didn't want you. I wanted what you represented. Comfort, stability, the life I thought I deserved without earning it. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know that I get it now. Jason." For a long time, I just sat there, reading it over and over. The apology I'd once begged for had arrived too late, but oddly, it didn't hurt anymore. It felt like closure delivered by courier. I drafted my reply that night, brief but honest. "Jason, thank you for the apology. I appreciate it. I'm happy now. I hope you find your happiness too. Eliana." I sent it. And with that, the last thread tying me to that old version of my life finally snapped clean. A few months later, during a conference in the city, I ran into Margaret and Peter, Jason's parents, at a restaurant. They spotted me before I could even wave. "Eliana, you look radiant," Margaret said, hugging me before I could protest. They insisted I join them for coffee. "We owe you an apology," Peter said as soon as we sat down. "We raised Jason to value the wrong things. Status, appearances, what other people think." Margaret nodded. "When he told us the real story, we were ashamed. You were nothing but good to him." "Thank you," I said quietly. "He's in therapy now," Margaret continued, trying to understand why he couldn't see past his pride, why he turned love into a competition. "I'm glad he's getting help," I said. Peter leaned forward, his expression soft. For what it's worth, we would have been proud to have you as a daughter-in-law. Something in me eased. That means more than you know. They smiled, and just before I left, Margaret asked the question that once would have broken me. Are you happy? I thought about my team back in Milbrook, about Evan waiting for me at the lake cabin with takeout Ty and his rescued beagle snoring by the fire. I thought about the quiet confidence that had replaced the need to prove myself to anyone. I am, I said, completely. The drive back to Milbrook that evening felt like rewinding a movie to the scene where everything changes. Only this time, I wasn't the woman wondering if she'd made a mistake. I was the woman who'd built something beautiful from the ruins of being underestimated. When I got home, Evan was on the porch, paint splattered from fixing the shutters. Hey, city girl, he teased. You ready to help me ruin these perfectly good overalls? I laughed, set my bag down, and kissed him. You have no idea how ready. Later, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip behind the trees, I thought of something my boss had said months ago. People don't change for you. They change for consequences. Jason had lost me to his own choices, but I hadn't lost anything at all. I'd found a life that wasn't defined by anyone's approval, a life that was mine. Here's what I know now. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. When they tell you they don't care enough to ask, take them at their word. And if you ever have to choose between your dreams and someone who mocks them, choose the dream. Every single time. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's peace. It's success. It's sitting on your porch in a boring town that turned out to be extraordinary, watching the stars with someone who never once asked you to shrink.